The public narrative surrounding the Smith family has developed over several decades, shaped by sustained visibility in film, television, and broader cultural discourse. Will Smith's transition from a music career in Philadelphia to global recognition as a film actor established a foundation of commercial success and influence. Jada Pinkett Smith's path, beginning with acting roles that reflected a distinct and grounded presence, later expanded into hosting and producing, most notably through platforms that emphasized open discussion of personal and social issues. Together, their careers formed a partnership that combined professional achievement with a consistent public presence. Their approach to family life became part of this broader narrative. Will and Jada frequently described their parenting style as intentionally unconventional, placing emphasis on independence and self-expression. This philosophy was presented in interviews and public discussions as a response to the constraints often associated with both traditional family structures and the expectations placed on children raised within the entertainment industry. Their children, Jaden and Willow Smith, were encouraged to explore creative and personal identities without strict adherence to established norms. This approach positioned the family as an example of an alternative model of parenting within a highly visible environment. It also contributed to ongoing public interest in how such a model would function over time. As Jaden and Willow entered public life through music, acting, and media appearances, their development was observed within the context of these stated principles. Their choices, both personal and professional, were often interpreted in relation to the values their parents had publicly endorsed. In recent discussions, commentary from comedian and media figure DL Hughley has introduced a more critical perspective on this model. His remarks have focused on the potential consequences of an environment defined by blurred boundaries between authority and familiarity. Rather than addressing isolated incidents, his critique situates current observations within a longer-term framework, linking present behavior to earlier family dynamics. These comments have contributed to renewed attention on how the Smith family's approach to parenting has been understood and evaluated. The broader context includes moments that have shaped public perception of the family over time. One such moment involved the disclosure of a past relationship between Jada Pinkett Smith and singer August Alsina, which was discussed publicly on Red Table Talk. The conversation was framed at the time as an attempt to address personal circumstances within the structure of a long-term marriage. However, the situation also introduced questions regarding interpersonal boundaries, particularly given Alsina's reported connection to the family prior to the relationship. This period became part of a wider discussion about the nature of transparency and its implications. The Smith family's willingness to address private matters in public settings has been interpreted in different ways. Supporters have viewed it as an effort to normalize complex aspects of relationships, while critics have questioned whether such openness alters the stability of traditional family roles. These differing interpretations continue to shape how past events are revisited in light of more recent commentary. Additional elements of the family's history have contributed to this ongoing analysis. Reports and public statements have referenced the New Village Leadership Academy, a private school established by Will and Jada. The institution was presented as an educational initiative designed to offer an alternative learning environment. However, its association with certain teaching methods and external claims regarding its structure led to scrutiny and eventual closure. Public responses to these developments varied, reflecting differing views on the intentions and outcomes of the project. Within this broader framework, the Smith family's experience represents a convergence of public visibility, personal philosophy, and external interpretation. Their choices have been documented and discussed in ways that extend beyond individual events, forming a continuous narrative that evolves over time. The combination of professional success, public openness, and unconventional approaches to family life has created a context in which each new development is assessed against a well-established background. At this stage, the available information outlines a series of interconnected elements without drawing definitive conclusions. The perspectives offered by figures such as DL Hughley add to an existing range of interpretations, each reflecting different assumptions about responsibility, influence, and long-term impact. The focus remains on how these elements interact, rather than on any single event, as the narrative continues to develop within both public and media discourse. DL Hughley's recent commentary has focused attention on specific events within the Smith family's history, particularly those that relate to boundaries and interpersonal relationships. His critique centers on the period involving Jada Pinkett Smith's relationship with singer August Alsina, which had previously been discussed publicly. While that discussion was presented at the time as an effort to address personal circumstances within a marriage, Hughley's interpretation places greater emphasis on the surrounding context and its potential implications. The relationship with Alsina did not occur in isolation. Reports indicate that he had an existing connection to the family prior to the involvement, including an association with Jaden Smith. This background has been referenced in ongoing discussions as a factor that complicates the situation, particularly in terms of how relationships within the family were structured. Hughley's perspective highlights the intersection of personal vulnerability and proximity, noting that Alsina had been dealing with health challenges and personal difficulties during that period. From this standpoint, the critique is less focused on the relationship itself and more on the environment in which it developed. The presence of overlapping roles, parent, mentor, and peer, has been identified as a point of concern. Hughley's remarks suggest that such overlap can create uncertainty in how individuals within the same environment understand their positions and expectations. This interpretation does not establish a direct causal outcome, but it introduces a framework for examining how personal dynamics may influence long-term development. Alongside these discussions, references to the family's educational initiative, the New Village Leadership Academy, have re-emerged. The school was originally presented as an alternative learning environment with an emphasis on independent thinking and non-traditional teaching methods. However, reports linking aspects of its curriculum to study technology associated with L. Ron Hubbard led to scrutiny. Public commentary from figures such as Leah Remini has reinforced these concerns, while Jada Pinkett Smith has publicly denied any formal involvement with Scientology. These differing positions have contributed to ongoing debate regarding the nature and influence of the institution. The combination of these elements, family structure, personal relationships, and educational choices, forms the basis of a broader narrative about environment and development. Within this context, recent public appearances by Jaden Smith have drawn attention. At a premiere event for Could Have Been Love Season 2, he was observed ending an interaction with a reporter before responding to a question regarding a collaboration with designer Stephen Smith on a Christian Louboutin collection. The interaction, while brief, generated discussion due to its departure from expected media engagement. Additional footage from Paris has also circulated, showing Jaden reacting with visible discomfort during a period of hail. The response was noted by observers and contributed to a wider conversation about his public demeanor. These moments have been discussed alongside his fashion choices, including the use of a custom accessory described as a miniature dollhouse. While such expressions can be interpreted as part of a broader artistic identity, they have also been viewed by some commentators as indicative of a more complex underlying context. Public reaction to these developments has been shaped by the accumulation of earlier narratives. Observers often reference past events when interpreting present behavior, creating a continuity between different stages of the family's history. Hughley's comments reflect this pattern, linking current observations to earlier decisions and structures. His perspective suggests that the environment in which Jaden Smith was raised may play a role in how his public persona is perceived today. At the same time, alternative interpretations remain present. The Smith family has consistently framed its approach as intentional, with an emphasis on autonomy and self-definition. From this viewpoint, Jaden's actions can be understood as expressions of individuality rather than indicators of instability. The coexistence of these perspectives underscores the absence of a single, agreed-upon interpretation. The available information from this stage outlines a series of events and viewpoints without resolving the underlying questions. The interaction between past decisions, public perception, and individual behavior remains open to interpretation. As a result, the narrative continues to develop through a combination of documented events and the perspectives applied to them. Recent discussions surrounding the Smith family have shifted toward questions of long-term impact, particularly in relation to how early environment and public exposure may influence individual development. The focus has moved from isolated events to a broader examination of continuity, where past decisions, public disclosures, and personal boundaries are considered together rather than separately. Within this framework, Jaden Smith's current public presence has become a central point of interpretation. His recent appearances, including interactions at public events and moments captured in informal settings, have generated varied responses. Observations of his behavior, such as disengaging from a reporter's question at a film premiere or reacting visibly to weather conditions while in Paris, have been circulated and analyzed. These moments, while limited in scope, have contributed to a wider conversation about demeanor and awareness in public settings. They are often viewed alongside his established interest in unconventional fashion and artistic expression, which has been a consistent element of his public identity. Interpretations of these observations differ. Some commentary frames them as part of a broader pattern that may reflect the influence of his upbringing, particularly within a family structure that emphasized autonomy and non-traditional roles. Others view the same actions as expressions of individuality within a creative field that often encourages deviation from standard expectations. The absence of direct statements from Jaden Smith regarding these interpretations leaves the discussion shaped largely by external perspectives rather than personal clarification. DL Hughley's remarks contribute to this ongoing analysis by connecting present observations to earlier family dynamics. His critique emphasizes the possibility that blurred boundaries within the family environment may have introduced challenges in defining roles and expectations. This perspective does not establish a direct causal relationship, but it places emphasis on how sustained exposure to unconventional structures might affect long-term development. His comments reflect a broader tendency to reassess past events in light of current behavior. The earlier disclosure of Jada Pinkett Smith's relationship with August Alsina remains a reference point within these discussions. Its significance lies not only in the relationship itself, but in the context in which it occurred and was later addressed publicly. The decision to discuss the matter openly introduced an example of how personal issues were managed within the family's broader philosophy of transparency. That approach continues to influence how subsequent developments are interpreted, particularly when considering the distinction between private experience and public narrative. Additional elements, including the establishment and closure of the New Village Leadership Academy, contribute to the overall context. The school was presented as an alternative educational model, though it later became associated with external claims and differing public responses. Statements from figures such as Leah Remini and subsequent denials from Jada Pinkett Smith illustrate the presence of conflicting accounts. These elements remain part of the broader environment in which the family's decisions are evaluated. The combination of these factors highlights the complexity of assessing influence within a highly visible family structure. Public figures operate within conditions where personal choices are subject to continuous observation and interpretation. In this case, the interaction between professional success, public disclosure, and unconventional approaches to family life has produced a narrative that does not align with a single explanation. Each element contributes to an understanding that is shaped by perspective rather than definitive conclusion. At present, the available information does not establish a clear outcome regarding the long-term effects of these dynamics. Jaden Smith continues to maintain a presence within creative and public spaces, while interpretations of his behavior remain varied. The broader discussion reflects an ongoing attempt to reconcile past decisions with present observations, without a unified framework for doing so. The situation illustrates the challenges associated with evaluating personal development within a context of sustained public attention. It also underscores the limits of external analysis when direct insight into individual experience is limited. As a result, the narrative remains open, defined by a combination of documented events, public commentary, and the absence of confirmed conclusions regarding causation or long-term impact.